Good morning. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode 112. I'm JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas with me. What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm fantastic, dude. We're
Yeah?
we're trying out
What's
some
going
new
on?
recording software, so we'll see whether or not this works. If it
Yeah,
doesn't, we'll always wish that it would have.
I know. Best up. Oh, man. How's your day, bud? It's Veterans Day,
It
which
is.
is a great day.
It is. It's awesome. I got to sit down. So we have a group of pastors that gets together about once a quarter,
Nice.
and just kind of share the things that are going on to try to keep ourselves kind of centered, so that it's easy to get isolated and that. And one of the new guys to the group, 21 years in the Air Force, and just became a pastor a couple months ago. So cool to get to sit down and chat with him. Wished him a happy Veterans Day, and got to talk a little bit about his time in service and all that. So yeah, it was awesome.
That's awesome, bro.
Yeah.
That's cool. It was Sunday. I got to speak at Milestone for the Veterans Lunch, and man, it was incredibly humbling for me. Um, I started it off by talking about how I just, I felt unworthy up there, and I said, to be honest, I felt unworthy most of my adult life doing a lot of the things that I've gotten to do in the SEAL teams and now at Echelon Front and stuff like that. Um, but I was also able to add to that, like. And throughout all those times, I just had to rely on the Lord and lean into the Lord, because if something's given to me as an opportunity, man, you got to seize it. Whether you're comfortable
Yep.
doing those things or not, if it's an opportunity, man, God's opened up those doors for you. Like, you have to go take action. And they've had a lot of phenomenal speakers the last couple of years. This guy Brad that spoke last year, I wasn't there because I was speaking up at the McKinney location with my buddy Pastor Chris Larma and his wife Wendy, and that was awesome. Really enjoyed it. Had some salvations and rededications at that one. But this guy Brad, just incredible career as an officer in the military, and then the year before was my buddy Joshua McCaskill, officer. That wants to come on the podcast as well, and he has just an incredible story. Infantry officer in the Army, and was teaching at West Point, and just has some incredible combat stories and life stories. And then the year before was that I believe Amanda and I were at that one. You know, lady is a veteran, and was at that time like currently like the CEO of Bell Helicopter. And you're just like, I'm like, dude, you look at the last three, I'm like, one of us is not like the others. Like, I mean, these are just incredible, just military leaders, and just incredible. And I know what I get to do at Echelon Front. I know that's elevated my ability to speak and, just be comfortable doing those things. And it wasn't like I was uncomfortable speaking, because I don't get uncomfortable speaking anymore. I'm very comfortable. It's a skill set. And, plus I know what I'm talking about and teaching. I know the material. And I also went into this prepared of like, okay, these are things that we're going to talk about. And Josh and I, Pastor Josh and I, met the week prior, and had lunch and ran through some stuff, and I had some notes on my phone of things I was thinking about and was formulating that talk, and it was cool. I really enjoyed the whole thing when it was done. But as I'm getting up there and I'm just looking at like this room full of veterans and their families, bro, we had 250 families there.
Whoa.
Yeah. Dude, the gentleman that opened up the prayer is 99 years old, served in World War II.
Bruv.
And he's the one opening up the prayer. I'm just like, I mean, it was just, it was incredible, man. And I was humbled, and, but it was also cool to be able to share like, hey, yeah, I feel this way, but cool. I've got an opportunity in front of me, like I'm going to push forward. I'm not going to let my feelings and emotions dictate what I do or don't do. And um, man, just some of the gentlemen and ladies that I met afterwards that served, I was just very humbled to meet them, to talk with them, to interact with them, and develop some new friendships at this event. My buddy Mike Mitchell was there, and a few of his other buddies that I've now gotten to know, that are, this one dude who's a Marine, was in Ar Ramadi, a few years before us, and dude's a stud. Like, I would love to get him on the podcast. I don't want to share too much of his stuff because I don't know how much he kind of keeps private.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, the dude's he's an awesome dude. He's done some really cool stuff. And then another one of his buddies, Brian, who, is a fighter pilot in the Marine Corps, and he's just incredible humans. And then I met this dude, Will, that Mike and his wife Emily invited him and his wife to come to. Mike Mitchell met him at the gym that they train at, and the guy's a trainer there. And Mike had told me about this guy, Will. He's like, bro, this dude is a freaking stud. I mean, just literally looks like just a beefed up GI Joe doll. I mean, the guy just looks like, I mean, he just looks apart, like big, freaking broad shoulders, huge chest, thick back, just muscular, like skinny waistline. And Mike told me, he's like, when he was like, when I first saw this guy, like just at the gym training and getting after it, he goes, I knew. He's just like, I knew that I knew this dude was a Marine. It's just like the way, haircut, just everything, the way he conducts himself, young Marine stud. And so they end up talking, getting to know each other. And, one thing I love about Mike Mitchell is his heart for other people, like truly his heart
Hmm.
for reaching other people, connecting with them, spreading the gospel, spreading Jesus's love, like, and just being a good human. And, he does it, just at an incredible level. And, which led to this guy coming to our church. And, he goes to another church, but, a really good church that he likes. But for him to come and meet a lot of different veterans and different people, it was just really cool. And it turns out like the dude's a fan of Jocko's podcast and our podcast as well. And I was like, what? Like, this is crazy.
That's wild.
Getting to talk to him and meet him. And so, you have, the young generation that I met, and I say young generation, like the one that's still in, and, or like a lot younger than myself that were in and just got out. And then a freaking World War II veteran that's 99 years old. And it was really cool to kind of share not kind of, but to be able to share my testimony and my story of just, from a childhood to the military, to transitioning out, to the marriage falling apart, to finances falling apart, to getting it back and taking ownership of my life. And, Amanda and I taking ownership of our marriage, and then that opportunity at Echelon Front, and then losing Seth, and then like what that meant to me and what that caused and how I was able to like push through some of those things. um, it was an honor, man. And today being Veterans Day, it's an absolute honor to have served and to serve alongside those incredible guys that I was able to serve with. And I got a text from my buddy Benny, and it just made my day, man. He's like, "Happy Veterans Day, love you, bro. Honored to serve alongside you." And I'm like, bro, I I love that dude, as you know, at such a
Yeah.
high level, and it was my honor to work alongside him and to learn from him, right? And to be coached and mentored as a new guy from Benny. And even on my second platoon, and even after tasking a Bruiser, like doing other stuff, like him just being that good leader that always guided me and coached me. It was it was cool to get that text, and a handful of other text messages and stuff throughout the day. But um yeah, there's a handful of things that I'd want to be doing on Veterans Day. The number one is always like being with my family because my kids really enjoy that and they want to be
Yeah.
around me on Veterans Day. The other one is what I was doing today is running FTXs, man. And I know that seems weird to some people, right? Because they'd be like, "Oh, if I had the chance to not do anything on a day, I'd pick that." And I just, man, I love what I do, and I love
Yeah.
Echelon Front, and I believe in what we do. And if I can't be with my family, and if I can be running an FTX, and being able to share the stories from our fallen teammates, um, and share those lessons and help people become better leaders, bro, I'll do that all day long. I'll do it all day long. So yeah, it was a good day.
That's awesome, man. I love just the perspective that you have on it, and shout out to the guys over on the Path podcast from FBC Hendersonville. I think Jeff Tarkington shot me a message. They were recording an episode last night and used this quote from Seth Stone. It said, "I wanted to be liked to fit in, but I needed it to lead." And they're just
Mm.
talking about, what it takes to be godly men, and what they're doing over there is pretty cool. But he was excited that they got to use that on, and he's in the PD out there, but just excited that they got to use that and, um, tie what they've learned from listening to our podcast, from Jocko's podcast, about Seth and about some of those leadership lessons. And he's, crazy that there is somebody that, none of us will ever get to meet, right? This side
Not
of
on
heaven.
Earth. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah, yeah. This side of heaven.
And yet, like, the lessons that you guys learned from him and the way that y'all talk about him, and obviously the legacy that he has, the way that it's been passed down, is one of those that's cool because we're all still getting lessons from Seth. Did a little bit of a dive on the history of Veterans Day, just my own curiosity and that kind of thing. Like, originally it was called Armistice Day. It still is in some parts of the world, right? So the 11th hour on the 11th day of the 11th month is when there was the ceasefire in World War One, and then it was World War One Remembrance Day not long after that, and then in the 30s was kind of shifted to that, and then under Eisenhower became Veterans Day, and in honoring the people, the folks who were in World War One and in World War Two, and then since then we've had several other wars. But you talk about this guy who's 99 years old, and I remember growing up, and it was not uncommon to see World War II vets around. They were
Yeah.
still in their 60s and 70s when we were young. But to think that, like, my kids will probably never remember
Mm.
meeting somebody who was
That's
in World
crazy,
War
bro.
II is wild.
That's that's
you
crazy.
know and we've got some guys who are at our church who are Vietnam vets, in their late 70s, in their 80s, and like we
Yeah.
and the same thing, the Korean War vets are there. And so, like, this generation, maybe two generations of warriors whose knowledge of wars on foreign soils and all of that stuff, and just what they went through and the history that these guys are holding on to, who were like really pretty silent about it. Like, we're losing more and more of those guys. We've talked about Kirsten's great granddad a couple of times on here, and
Oh yeah.
he guarded the room. He was an MP. He guarded the room that Churchill, Stalin, and FDR were in whenever they were drafting the original ceasefire things in World War II.
Sure.
Like, he's just standing outside of that room, and I mean, none of us knew it, right? And I don't even know the guy. I guess in boot camp they started calling him Butch. That's all I ever knew him. I didn't even know he had a real name until until after he passed. So it's all of these, like, just incredible things about those generations. And as you're talking about it, it just kind of hits home, is that we're losing those guys just because they're getting to the age now where the Lord's taking them home. And now my question to you, and all of having said all of that, is your generation of warriors are now going to become what those guys in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, what they were for us, is what you guys are about to become for this new generation of warriors and of
Hmm.
American soldiers and just fighting men and women. So what is, as you reflect on things like that on Veterans Day, what does that mean to you, knowing that, like, this next generation, they're looking to you guys for those lessons, for the wisdom that you guys learned in the battlefield and in life?
Well, first, I will say, um, well, let me speak for myself. compare absolutely nowhere close to those guys. Like, not even on the same field, bro. Not even the same, just like it's just that like we don't come close to what the guys did and what they went through and endured. Um yeah, Vietnam, bro, we're nothing compared to those guys. Korean War, absolutely horrific. World War II, like, dude, come on. It just so I want to be like very clear, like I appreciate what you're saying and I understand what you're saying in regards to like, yeah, we're gonna be that generation of warfighters that, yeah, my kids and my grandkids, like we'll be that current living generation that they look to, but big picture will never compare to what those guys did. Because if you look at what they did with how little they had, that's
Mhm.
unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, bro, we have freaking night vision. Those guys are running operations in Vietnam, like by sound, smell, and feel,
Yeah.
you know? We had the ability to see at night and we had invisible lasers on our guns where I could hold that on some dude's chest from 100 yards away and he had no idea. And all I have to do is a smooth trigger pull and that dude drops like, oh, come on, right? And then it's just like the advancements in aviation, like,
I mean, and
yeah, I
those
don't know.
guys
It's
were the
just,
pioneers of
I know,
war
bro,
or
unreal.
aviation warfare. Like that's before there was such a thing as the Air Force. It was the
Air
Army Air
Corps.
Corps
That's
still.
what my
Yeah.
that's what my grandfather flew in. My mom's
Yeah.
dad flew in the Army Air Corps, World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam War.
I think I told you that funeral I did for just a wonderful lady named Jean Woods. She's 90 years old. She passed away this summer. We did her memorial service and they had a family graveyard. And out
mm,
there were people that like I think the earliest birthday on the headstone that I saw was like 1814. And so it's like every major conflict that the United States was in, they was represented there. I mean, going back to
bro,
like prior to the Civil War, right? That there are folks that fought in like the War of 1812 kind of a thing, like around. It was
dude,
nuts.
that's crazy.
But yeah, right. But the amount of people that served in the Army Air Corps or in the cavalry units when they made the transition from horses to tanks and like just thinking about that, right? They're like, that's what they were doing in World War II as they were like, you know what we should think about is getting off of the ponies and into the giant war machines that it's insane to think about how technology changed the game for them and that they were figuring all of that stuff out in
Yeah,
real time. It's
yeah.
it's so wild.
It's one of the things. Well, I'm sorry. One of the things that you just said, sparked something, and I'm gonna make the comment. I don't know. We'll see if we get canceled or not on this one. But you said the war machine, and it just made me think, like, bro, wars used to be fought for morals,
Mhm.
and now it's a money maker, bro.
Yep.
It's a freaking money maker because war makes people filthy rich. And there's a lot of company that peace is not in the best interest of their stocks of them, doing what they can do. Now, is there a reason we go to war? Yeah. Is there a reason we stay at war as long as we stay there? I don't know. You tell me. It's way above my pay grade, dog.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and that it doesn't take away from my service and it doesn't take away from the service of all the men and women that I fought alongside, in Iraq and Afghanistan. And, it doesn't take away from the other, obviously, generations of warfighters. But it's unfortunate when you see what human greed does. Um, you know, I don't know, man. You just, as you learn more, as you see behind the curtain, as time goes on, I don't know, it can be frustrating at times, but you can't take that, you can't allow that to take away from your service. Because on the flip side, and I've shared this multiple times on this podcast, and that's what that's what I put into the calculus of me like making this comment. I know how good, just how much good we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. I know that because I was a part of those missions and I saw my teammates do incredible things, and I saw other soldiers and Marines do incredible things and just saving innocent women and children and men, right? That were just forced into horrible situations, and, being able to hunt down evil human beings, the enemy fighters, bro, that's an honor of mine. And I'll go do it right now. I mean, bro, if I could go overseas where they're slaughtering Christians and hunt those people down, somebody tell me how I could do that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that is something I would legitimately look into and tell Lath and Jocko, like, hey, man, I'm going to take a 6-month sabbatical. Uh, Cody's got the FTX program like he has for the last couple of years. I don't
Right.
need to be there. If there's a high level client that needs an executive there, like if one of you guys can cover down, or Dave Burke or Jamie, cool. But if
Give
not,
him the
Cody's
number of your
got it.
sat phone.
Yeah, no, like, I just, bro, because there's evil people that need to be eradicated and removed from the earth. There are evil people that need to be removed from the earth. And I also know that to be true. So I was, a little controversial with my comment, but I also know that what I said is not wrong.
Yeah.
So,
And
um,
it's not anything that a former sitting president hasn't said. With but no, I'm talking like Eisenhower's whole thing was the everybody talks about it, and it's interesting to me. So in Hackworth's book Hazardous Duty, which is about Desert Storm and Desert Shield, he refers to the military industrial complex, and he was like, the thing that's the worst about the military industrial complex is the fact that they took out the first word of it, that they wouldn't let Eisenhower say the Congressional Military Industrial Complex because Congress didn't like that. So they made him drop that, and that was his biggest critique over that. And so it's funny that like so
I mean, their stocks are doing well though.
I, there's going to be people that criticize, right? But the thing at the end of the day is like the people like me, like the NCCs, which are really, we're the armchair quarterbacks of the military world, right? It's like, yeah, we might say something like, oh, it's not right that he says that. But if the guys who are putting their lives on the line have something to say about it, then you know what? You guys, especially on a day like today, should be given the freedom to speak
Well,
on it and speak your piece,
and,
because you got a different
and
perspective, a better perspective than what we do.
bro, and like, I also watch what I say because, bro, creating conflict for no reason is not something you should do. And I also watch what I say because of what I do with Echelon Front.
Yeah.
What I said was not wrong. It's a fact because there are
Yeah.
greedy humans. There are also really good humans. I work with a lot of great companies. You know what? I've been doing this for 9 years. I don't think I can look back over the last 9 years and think of one company that I worked with that I was like, they are not a good company. Not one. And I've worked with Fortune 50 companies because I know there's good and bad in every organization. And there's incredible humans in our nation. There's incredible warfighters. There's incredible leaders. There's bad, but there's incredible people. And I've worked alongside them. I've fought alongside them. I've worked for them. My leadership has worked for them. I just wanted to make that fun little comment because it's a little controversial, but if somebody was to say that I was wrong in that comment, I would love to have like a professional, like peaceful debate about that in regards to like, okay, where am I wrong?
Yeah.
So anyways, Veterans Day is a good day, no matter what your political beliefs or views are. Um, Veterans is a great day because it's an honor for, me to sit back and think about my service and the incredible humans that I worked alongside, the incredible humans that I learned from, that I was able to serve with, to learn from. And I'm just honored to have been able to, carry that flag on my shoulder of this beautiful nation and to have a small piece in what we get to do. Have
Yeah,
a
man.
small piece in Afghanistan, small piece in Baghdad, small piece in the Battle of Ramadi. Now, very, very, very small, minuscule piece, but rewarding to know that you went out there, you worked hard, you did the right things for the right reasons. You did some really cool stuff. You did some stuff you're like, oh man, we got lucky. You did some stuff that you're like, man, that was really dumb. I should probably not ever do that again. Um, and I'm just, it's cool. And then you see the support and love from people for veterans on this day. It's, man, it's humbling, and yeah, I always feel bad because like today, like I get so many messages and text messages, and I'm like, man, just trying to filter through and record, like respond. And then especially today when I'm doing an FTX, I mean, you know what my days of FTX are
Mhm.
like that phone's on do not disturb the whole time. We're meeting in the lobby at 4:45 to load gear into the vehicles, stop at the gas station to grab ice and, some extra little snacks. And once we get there, it's like game on. Like we're unloading stuff, prepping stuff, whatever. Client shows up, interacting with them, talking through stuff. Time to start training. We start training. We jump into those things immediately, like in brief, safety brief, teaching classes, getting the intel package together, doing kind of verbal rehearsals of what the runs are going to be in the flow. And, and before all that, like, after the gear load and prep, unloading and prep, you're also walking the field and like talking through the scenarios and all those things. I mean, and then it's game on, give out the intel. They start planning it. You're interacting with the client. I'm interacting with the leadership of this, groundworks that I'm working with, Flynn and these other leaders that are great here. And, then they're getting mission approval and they're coming to me and asking questions. And then we go out, and mission gets approved. We execute, we go out there, we're on the run, and you're looking and watching and trying to stay as detached as you can. You're providing updated intel out in the field and filtering questions and, all these things and listen to the role players. One time I was like doing something, Flynn was talking to me. I was like, hey, 1 second, bud. And, I'm sitting there. I was like, oh, sorry. And I held on my headphones so you could know. And I'm trying to listen to the role players and, we're trying to coordinate and move things around. And then I'm, having to update the client with updated intel from the quote drones that we have there feeding information. And then Flynn and I are talking and aligning. He's like, hey, get the role players to shift and push over there. And hey, if you can get them to do this, that would be awesome too. And, and then the objective gets met or they fail or whatever it is. And then it's heading back and turning off the taggers. And then, they're taking off the guns and we're turning them off and they're getting drinks of water. We're prepping for the debrief and the instructors are already, doing our debrief before we go sit and talk. And we do a debrief with the FTX team to align with what they said. And then boom, running through the debrief. And that goes all the way to, all right, cool. Hey, new leadership. Boom. And it's just like back to back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. And
It's
that's why
fast
I
paced,
said,
dude.
and that's why I said what I said earlier is because there's nowhere else I'd rather be other than being with my family on Veterans Day of being able to do what we do at Echelon Front to honor the legacy of the men that we fought alongside with that are no longer here and to also honor the military in general. Because if you could take lessons from your time in the military and combat and you can share those through stories and debriefs and creating the training that we have at Echelon Front, and somebody can take those lessons and apply them to their personal life and their business, that's a way to also honor the military that you serve for. So, man, it was a good day, bud. What else? What else you got, man? What questions? I mean, I know we're
Well, I
probably going to do
mean,
a short episode on this, just just
I've got a
because.
lot
But
of I've got a lot of personal questions about stuff in and around
yeah,
Veterans Day. I think we've asked a lot of it between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. I think I've probably asked most of those questions and stuff before. So, let's get into some questions from the interwebs. If
ooh,
you wanna get after some of those.
yeah.
Yep. So, first off, and this is a hot off the press question. Jeremiah, when is Origin gonna make a 5X t-shirt so that I can fit into it? This is coming from our friend Ethan Bernard.
Mm,
So Ethan wants to know whether or not you're gonna be. Jocko's made some some printed shirts for Ethan in his size. He's been repping those while he was out in Philly. Did you see the Washington Post did an article on him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
freaking awesome.
yeah, pretty cool. So but that's his question. He wants to know, JP, whatever influence you have, see if you can get Pete and Amanda on a 5X for him. Would you like to make any promise about that right now here on the air?
Yeah, my
Yeah.
promise is I'll see what I can do, bud. I'll see what I can do, big sexy. That
Sweet.
dude's what he's right now currently as we are recording this, I believe he's 2 pounds away from losing 200 pounds.
Yes. Yeah. He's already lost an entire me in the last
crazy, bro.
year. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, he's doing awesome, and shout out to Ethan and Joey and the Jocko Fuel team for all the great content and stuff they've been putting out. All right. Question number
awesome.
2. Now this is not an attire question.
Oh, okay.
JP, if someone were to ask you what your most memorable story from the Battle of Ramadi is, 1, would you answer? And 2, what would it be? I like the first part of this question because it is somebody that's been paying attention to our podcast, at least, because they want to know like whether or not you would answer the question, which I think is fair.
Most memorable.
Most memorable. Like that seems almost kind of subjective.
Well,
right?
yeah.
Like, memorable for what reason?
Winner, chicken dinner, baby.
Yeah. Because the loofah story is great, and I always want to hear that one.
I just had 5 things flooded in my brain all at the same moment.
Let's go for all of them. I got time.
Well, no, what I was going to say is there are some that I will not share on a recording. Because just, some people don't want to hear those stories.
Right.
And some people, it would be taken the wrong way. And some, I'm just like, okay, yeah. And that's a very, top story for sure. And then all of a sudden I think about another one. I'm like, oh yeah, that one, that's pretty legit. And then you look at another one, one that always makes me smile is I have a video. I need to find it. I don't think it's on this computer, maybe my old one. But I have a video of Benny and I on a rooftop. And it's Benny and I, and Mikey's up there too, and Seth, and a few other guys. And dude, this house that we're in is just getting peppered. Like just machine gun fire, RPGs, just all stuff like that. And I'm just like, I'm holding the camera, like old digital camera, like recording, boom, and then I bring it to myself, like, yeah, woo, boom, right? Because you just hear guys just like, like just gunfire and all this stuff going on. And then I look, video over to Benny, and he's just sitting there. We're like both sitting on the rooftop, like literally rounds are hitting the wall, not like next to us, like on the other side of the wall.
Yeah.
Rounds are hitting the wall, and he pulls out a can of dip, and he's just like, it starts like packing the dip, and just sits there and puts a big old lipper in, has this big old smile, and it's just like,
it's amazing.
And then I know guys had like pictures of it. I think I have a similar video like that too, where we're up there on a rooftop and I'm just like opening up an energy drink, and it's like a little midday get some, right? It's like chugging an energy drink while guys are just in a gunfight.
That's
and
awesome.
You're just like, so it's just like stuff like that, man, that you're just, you just think about those things and it's funny. I don't know who has a video. It was on Mikey's like stuff. He had it because when we were patrolling, I was the point man and Mikey was right behind me. And we were crossing this, I'll use Poop Creek, where there's just human feces out in the street, in the water, that would run by. And we're trying to get through it. It's like, bro, you don't want to step in that, right? And he's just like, you're so disgusting there, man. And so I go and I jump across it. and my like the like my toes and ball of my foot hit the curb. But right before we went out on this operation, we had been blasting legs, like heavy leg presses, lots of volume, squats, walking lunges, deadlifts, like crazy workout. I actually, in my workout notebook that I still have, I have in the notes, workout interrupted for mission because we were supposed to be done, like, because we just come back from an Overwatch and guys, like, got a little rest in, or we'd go work
Mm-hmm.
out, you know, the power of being 23, you know what I mean? And
It's pretty powerful.
uh, yeah, to be able to have
Mm-hmm.
that energy. And, but I mean, it was just nasty leg workout. And freaking, so my legs are all wobbly. Like all of us, like the guys are doing it, like you got the little like, wobbles while you're patrolling. And like I go, and my foot hits, and normally it would have been fine, like boom, but because I just had like not a lot of muscular ability at this point at my legs, bro, I eat it. Not in the
Oh,
water. Not in the water.
okay.
Thank God.
That's where I was
Because
thinking this was going.
mm, no, I would have just stood up on a rooftop as a target until the good Lord took me home. Like, you think I'm joking? That stuff is disgusting, bro. I would literally walk down the streets flying an American flag until somebody sent me home to the Lord if I fell into one of those things, bro. Like, yeah, and make sure you don't act like I went out like a hero. No, I was covered in human feces and wanted to be killed so I could go to heaven. Like zero, like from Iraq. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
just disgusting. No, and so I just, bro, I eat it. Just absolutely just eat it. And you can hear Mikey laughing, and then the Iraqi soldiers start laughing. And my other buddy, Wes, he was just like, you better be careful laughing at JP. He'll kill you. Because like we'd always joke to Iraqis back and forth
Yeah.
about stuff like that. And these dudes were awesome. Obviously not a real threat, but it was just like funny. And just that video got put in our platoon video, and it is the funniest thing. And you just hear Mikey's laugh, and it's just just this amazing laugh. And this was another time we're on a rooftop, and this is one of the times that I actually had an enemy sniper shoot through the loophole that we had blown through, that I was set up behind, and it like just a round came in, hit the edge of the loophole, fragmented some of the wall into my face, and the round went by and it hit like somewhere on the rooftop behind us. And that was like a close one. And so we were like, all right, cool, let's pull back off of that and let's maybe like not be behind the loopholes on the rifle and kind of just sit off the side, pop up, look around, and I kind of roll over. And and this is a video of Mikey. And again, this was in our platoon video where the call to prayer is going on, and he's just like singing along with it. And then he goes, welcome to the Mulab, right? And it's just this like like this epic like visual that I remember. And I remember when he was recording
Mm-hmm.
of himself, because he's just like, I'm not even gonna like try to do what he did, because we will absolutely get shut down
Right.
for my
All
attempt
of
to
it.
sing. My attempt to sing for what he was doing.
Uh-huh.
But it is like the funniest. Like everybody that would watch that would just be in tears laughing. And then we were doing an assault on one of Saddam's palaces, and we finally got authorization to do it, that the Iraqis took lead on, that we were supporting. And the video from that is just awesome. Like we have video from that, night vision rolling in,
Mm-hmm.
it's just awesome. And my buddy Ray and Mikey were like as deployment was going on, they were like working on the platoon video, which is really cool. So we got a lot of Mikey's stuff in there before he was killed. And Mikey loved the song In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. And so this segment of the platoon video, it's like all of us doing stuff on night vision. There's gunfights going on, explosions going on, Humvees driving down the road. You see the palace. We're flooding into the palace. You see from the inside, and the guys up on the rooftop holding security, like all this, like these different perspectives. And the whole time it's just blasting in the heat of the night.
Or In the Air
And you're
Tonight.
like,
Oh
oh,
my
I'm sorry,
gosh.
In the Air Tonight. And just
Yeah.
like like with the drums, like they timed that with like, as it did that, it was just like, bah, 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 like explosions going off and gunfight going on. And then all of a sudden guys like moving. Dude, it's just like, I think of things like that. And I'm like, there's just like, there's nothing like military service, bro. Like
Mm-mm.
when you're with good dudes. Yeah, man. There's
Yeah.
a few other, but I'll maybe
It's
hold on to those for another day.
yeah, it's funny to hear you talk about how you were 23
Yeah.
because you know when I think of you, when I think of Leif, when I think of Jocko, even when I think of Dave, right? And Dave might be the one where maybe it's the most dramatic, is that I picture Dave as I know him now in those different instances as, this kind of like tall, stoic, salt and pepper guy in the middle of all those things. But getting that reminder that, yeah, you guys were doing this stuff. You were kids. You were 23.
Bro, Jocko was so old when we were in Ramadi as
Was
our
he like
task unit
30?
commander. He was 34.
Oh my gosh.
I just remember how old he was, bro. And I was like, good Lord, man. Like, how does an old guy like that still move? And like, I don't get it, man. Like, and then you have
How
like
is this even
Tony,
possible?
like Tony, BTF Tony, he's like in his 40s, I think. I'm like, bro, that dude's like probably going to be in a walker soon. Like he is just like old and decrepit and just somehow gets after it. But then now I'm like, oh, I'm Tony's age now. Like when he was
Yeah.
in Ramadi.
Yep.
Which is crazy. Dude, I remember we were doing our workup in Task Unit Bruiser, and we're out in the middle of the desert in Nyland, at the Nyland Desert Training Facility, and it's hot, bro. We're talking like 110 plus degrees, and we're doing our runs, and guys take a break, and guys are drinking water. Like, you're drinking water and everything. And you know what Tony had in his canteen?
Is this hot coffee?
Black hot coffee. Freaking psychopath, bro. And he was
Dude,
just like, just talking about how guys are weak for needing water, and water's weak and blah, blah, weak. And what you need is black coffee in Copenhagen. And he's like putting in like half a can in his mouth for a chew and drinking black coffee. And I remember like smelling the Copenhagen and coffee mixture together, and I was like dry heaving because that smell combo and then the heat, I was just like, like, just like, and
this is
he's
how he's
just like,
choosing to live his life.
bro, like guys would joke about how like they called him the Nylander because of the amount of time he spent out in Nyland as an instructor in land warfare. And guys would joke and be like, yeah, like, how did Tony get in the teams? Oh, he was born under a rock out in Nyland and the SEAL teams found him. Like, you know what I mean? Like the dude's just awesome. Just like a different breed, for sure. And yeah, and then what I love the most about Tony is he was such an experienced team guy with just so many years of service and deployments under his belt. Yet Leif, who was on his second platoon as an OIC, outranked Tony. And then the AOIC and the third O, like the other junior officer in that platoon, they're like, bro, they still like like got water behind their ears from like graduating from SQT and checking into the SEAL teams, they outrank Tony because they're officers. Yeah. And Tony had this phenomenal attitude about those are my officers. And he poured into them and he taught them and he led them, but he was also led by them and had humility. And I always saw Tony show Leif, Seth, and Jocko, and even the other junior officers that were FNGs. You guys can figure that out, whatever you think it stands for, new guy. The fun new guys, okay? He treated those guys, at least in front of us, and I'm willing to bet he also did it not in front of us, with the absolute utmost respect. And that's what good leaders do. And I learned a lot from Tony. And obviously my platoon chief, but I learned a lot from Tony of just how he respected and mentored and helped our officers be better officers. And it's just incredible, man. And so I've got some funny stories from Tony too. Whenever we can get him to the studio, we'll dive into those. I don't want to share them without him because he has a special way of storytelling that is incredible. But yeah, I need to play for you one of my saved voicemails from Tony.
From Tony.
Day.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
hey chap, what are you doing, chap? Yeah, just calling to say hey, chap. Just thinking about you and figured I'd call up JP, and then he'd go into this like long voicemail and he's like, all right, give me a call when you get some time. Love you. And then it's like, and just like, bro, this is so awesome.
That's great, man. Yeah, he is one of those that, like, I think if Tony ever got the wild hair to like start his own podcast, that Jocko and Sean Ryan and all these other guys, like, the people would forget about theirs because they would just want to just listen to Tony talk.
It would be something.
It'd be definitely interesting. He would probably land amidst the comedy podcast before he would the inspirational ones. It sounds like, from the stories that I've heard.
Dude, there was a guy in the teams. He comes back from deployment, and his girlfriend, who he's very serious with, had been with for a while, and I was like, all right, cool, they're probably gonna get married. He comes back from deployment, and while he's on deployment the whole time, she was like working out super hard and eating healthy and all this stuff, and just really wanted to, look good for a man when he came home from deployment. And she looked incredible when he came home from deployment. And he broke up with her because she looked too good to be with him anymore. True story. True story.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What a psychopath. That's freaking incredible. But I mean, good for him. Good for him to know his ranking properly, to have a good enough self-assessment to realize, I'm not going to be able to hold on to this.
But what's crazy is he could have. She did that for him. Like, for him coming home. It wasn't like, it was for him, bro. And yeah, man.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Guys are dumb. Just as and the younger we are, the
dumber and full of inspiration we are.
No doubt about it. Well,
yeah.
All right,
I got one more question, two more, whatever you want.
I'm so, just because we're in the vein of this stuff, when it comes to the way that things have happened over the course of the last 100 years, we'll say, right?
Okay.
When you look at the stories that came out of World War One, the stories that came out of World War Two and Korea and Vietnam and all this, it seems like since maybe since the '60s, right? That and that's kind of like '50s and '60s is when you started to see more of the World War II memoirs kind of pop up. You know, you got Eugene Sledge and Robert Leckie and Audie Murphy, and these guys who served in different theaters are now beginning to tell their stories to the guys now. Do you think that it's the openness that your generation of fighter has that the previous generations didn't has to do with you think it just has to do with like the culture and times that it's more acceptable to talk about the things that you're going through? People are more interested not just in what you guys went
Um,
through, but also in like trying to make sure that y'all that we don't have this kind of repeat of what happened in the '60s, where the guys got home from Vietnam, where they felt ostracized. That there's like more of an interest there in hearing it, as partially because we want to hear the stories, but also partially because we want you to know that like we love and respect y'all for what you did for serving our country, and to be kind of a safe space for you guys to share if you need to. Or do you think it has to do with the way that we've seen everything progress and the need to tell the stories so that they're told as like cautionary tales? Do you think that, like, maybe it's a blend of the two?
well, I think there's a hybrid there somewhere. I don't know exactly what it looks like. I will say, I think from my perspective, and this is my perspective and my opinion, is I think over time people have been conditioned that it's okay and it's accepted and it's desired from others for stories and lessons to be shared. I think in World War One, World War Two time frame, like there wasn't a lot of people writing books,
Yeah.
and I think it's become a little more popular over time because it's one of those things like, okay, let's say you have. I know this is not going to be the proper ratio, but as an example, let's say there's 100 authors, right?
Hmm.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Well, before there was 100, there was 50. Before there was 50, there was 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there was like 10 people that were writing books, and somebody read those books and I was like, man, that's a really good book. And then, you know what? I like sharing stories. I like, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, right? I like telling stories and making up stories or sharing actual true stories. And someone was like, yeah, I'm going to write a book. Like, that would be fun. I'd like to write a book. Okay. And then it slowly grows. And then there's more exposure to all these different types of books. It creates
Yeah.
curiosity and piques people's interest. And then there's people that are like, bro, you should write a book, man. You got a great story. They're like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And it's like, no, man, you can get a ghostwriter, right? And there's people that are ghostwriting for people. And there's people that are having their books written by ghostwriters because writing a book is very hard and difficult, and it's a skill set. It takes a lot of time and effort.
Mhm.
But if you're an experienced ghostwriter, and I'm just like, all right, cool. Like, so I just got to share stories with you, and you transcribe them, and I review them, and we make edits, and we can publish. All right, that sounds awesome. So was a lot of that, and I think there's more and more access to resources and being able to spread that out, and people buying books from literally all over the world now, which is kind of crazy if you think about that. Like, I think there's just been an increase in awareness and availability,
Mhm.
and people realize it's like, all right, this is something that I can do. And I think currently, for what we have in the current generation, there's a lot of people that want to hear those stories that are very patriotic, that were around for 9/11 and when the wars kicked off and have seen the impact to our nation and to the warfighters coming home. And, some of them getting phenomenal care and some of them getting no care. Like, yeah, we were obviously we're never treated horrifically like the Vietnam vets, but I know veterans that freaking are suffering, and and then I know others that are freaking killing it in life. And so there's this spectrum there of just like all these different experiences from war, from military service. And then you got people that served in the military and never deployed overseas and, have a lot of guilt and a lot of shame because they're
Yeah.
like, well, I never deployed and this is all I did. And then you have guys that are in the military that avoided combat deployments. And then you have guys in the military that, oh, yeah, you can avoid combat deployments. There's SEALs that did it because they enjoyed being really good athletes instead of being a warfighter. Okay. So that happens. And then you have guys that deploy overseas, but never actually go into combat, but they're deployed, which is great. And they have a purpose. And yeah, you know what I mean? But then somehow they figure out a way to get 100% disability. And then I have buddies that legitimately have like medical disabilities because of surgeries and issues and trauma and all that other stuff. And they struggle with the VA to get the care that they deserve and need. And they don't have a full 100% medical rating.
Mm.
But you have somebody that literally stayed on base, never went out on the wire, and have somehow figured out how to get a 100% rating. Now, there are people that did that actually deserve the rating because I know there are people that through their military training and service and deployments and doing things, there was a lot of wear and tear. You know what I mean? Like my aunt, was now out and getting in gunfights, but got hurt overseas and, in training in the military, like, as, those things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's valid. But I'm talking about the dudes that are healthy, that never had an actual injury or had anything bad happen to them, and somehow were able to figure out the system and have 100% disability, bro.
Yeah.
And so there's good and bad in every organization, right? Like we were talking about earlier. And I know it kind of went off in tangent outside of like the book thing, but what I'm saying is just like there are people that have stories that need to be shared. And I think people recognize that and they want that. And I think a lot of veterans struggle with it because comparison is the ultimate thief of joy. And
Mm-hmm.
veterans will compare what they did to others, and that they have these self-imposed limitations that they put upon themselves. And then they'll never go share those stories because they feel like it's dishonoring and they shouldn't do that. Then there's others that see the value, like Jocko and Leif, and write two New York Times #1 bestsellers. And then Dave, who wrote his book, was a national bestseller right now. That you're like, yep, thank you. I wanted that book. I needed that book. So,
Yeah.
I don't have a black and white answer on that. I think there's just a lot of different factors that come into play. I have a buddy I went through buds with who, um, yeah, went through buds with. I'm not going to give any other information to respect his privacy. Um, but went on to do some other cool stuff at some different places. Had a phenomenal career. And, we were talking one day and he was all fired up about some stuff, people in the media and on the news and books. And he's very anti that, like
Mm-hmm.
very, very anti.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I respect that, bro. And he goes, you know what I'm going to have when I retire? I was like, I don't know, man. What are you going to have? He's like, a plaque. I'll have the plaques that I was given throughout my career in my home office, and that's it. I ain't going to do anything out, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, cool, man. I respect that, bud. I mean, he was very strong, willed in his opinion on this, but I also understood his opinion and I respected it.
Yeah.
And then, there's other guys, which is funny, that will have that same stance. But if it's convenient for them, they'll let you know that they were a SEAL.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one guy just was talking all this crap about Jocko Leif writing Extreme Ownership. He was a team guy. And I'm just listening, asking good, valid questions. And I was just like, hey, I have a legitimate question for you. The job that you have right now, on your resume, do you have your 20 plus years in the SEAL teams listed? Do you have all your commands listed? Do you have all of your qualifications listed? Do you have all your medals and ribbons listed? Do you have all these things listed on your resume? And he goes, well, yeah, it is my resume. I'm like, oh, so are you not pimping the Trident as well? And he had nothing to say.
Yeah.
I said, you don't have a problem doing it for when you need to make money so that you can go get a job to provide value to help a company. But if somebody does it in the form of a book that actually has greater reach than you will ever have at your job, it's a problem. I was like, I don't think that's fair, man. And like, I was very, very direct when I was like, I don't want you ever talking about Jocko and Leif like that again, or we're going to have some problems.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've done nothing but help people and provide value. And they've legitimately changed people's lives. And until you can tell me that you've done that out of the right, proper intent to help people, then I don't think you should be talking about this.
Yeah.
And he just sat there and you know what's cool? Is he's like, well, I've never read the book, so I don't know what was in it. And I'm like, then maybe you also probably shouldn't talk crap about something that you don't know about. I was like, do you want me to mail you a copy? I was like,
Send
if
me
I
out your
mail it,
book.
I said, if I mail you a copy, will you read it? He goes, yeah, I'll check it out. I'm like, all right, cool. Text me your new updated address, bro. And this is another team guy, right? And so
Yeah.
we can have a little bit of a different conversation. But one, don't come at me talking crap about Jocko and Leif and them writing a book. Like, it ain't going to work well for you, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's just like, dude, do you not see how much of a hypocrite you're being? They wrote a book that has value to change people's lives, and it has changed people's lives. You have every single thing you did in the SEAL teams listed on your resume. Like you're using the fact that you were a SEAL to get a job. You are using your military service to get you a job. They wrote a book to provide value and to help people. And the beautiful thing about living in America is, guess what? They made money doing it. God bless them. And they deserve that. And I was getting fired up because I was so pissed,
Still a little
bro.
fired up about it.
Well, yeah, it's BS, man. Like, what's that movie? You're coming at my guy all wrong.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. Like, bro, you come at Jocko and Leif like the professional echelon front JP might take a back seat for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I do think that's one of the things that's so interesting about in particular, the special operator community over the past several years is that there have been criticisms by people within that community to the folks that are writing books, but more often than not, what I've heard from the guys that I know that have been a part of it that are very much of the silent professional type, and when you look at like what Jocko and Leif have done, what you're doing with Echelon Front, that both sides of that coin, you guys have a tremendous amount of respect for each other as long as you are sticking to what your ethics are. Like, hey, if you're going to be the silent professional and you actually stick with that, then that's cool. Like, do your thing.
Like
I've
my
got
buddy
respect
that
for it. I
literally
totally
was
understand.
like,
yeah.
Like, he's like, bro, when I retire, I'm collecting retirement and disability, and that's it, man. And
Yeah,
I'm going to
I'm
go
going to get my
do
check.
like, and he's like, I'll do other jobs, but he's like, I'm not contracting. I'm not doing anything related to what I did. And I was like, all right, cool, man. I love
Yeah.
you. Like, like, let me know if you're ever down in DFW, bro. I'll buy you lunch or dinner.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
But no matter what side you guys fall on, whether you're part of that community or just a listener, happy Veterans Day, which is on Monday, and a big shout out to all the Gold Star families. That our thoughts, our prayers are with you guys, and thank you so much for for allowing your loved one to make the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. That they won't be forgotten. And like we've said so many times on this show, that what we do here is to honor those guys and to honor all of the fallen heroes from this nation. So thank you all. JP, thank you for your service and for affording me the opportunity to get to come and to be a part of this little corner of the internet where we get to hang out with people and provide leadership lessons and fun stories and all the above. If you guys, if you have questions for JP or for future episodes, go check us out on Instagram at JP Dinnell, at JP Dinnell Podcast. I'm at Lucas Pinkard. If you're watching on YouTube, drop us a comment. Let us know whether or not this is the kind of content that you want us to continue to make, or if you've got a question you want answered, drop it in there. You can also do that on Spotify, where you can leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Talk to people about why you like the podcast. Those reviews really help us a lot as we are making our way up the ranks in the management and leadership categories in both of those things. JP and I, we talked a little bit about Echelon Front. We talked a lot about Jocko and Leif today. You can check out the books that JP mentioned: Extreme Ownership, Dichotomy of Leadership, The New Burke, The Need to Lead by Dave Burke. In the and then I said hot rod orange on that cover. Go check those out. The leadership trilogy that's out there. Go look at the Echelon Front Extreme Ownership Online Academy, where you can be part of some of the best training that is going on the internet. You can be part of that Monday call on Monday afternoon. You can also get some of the courses on how to implement extreme ownership in your business. How do you change the culture in your business? How do you implement a culture of extreme ownership? All of those things are going to take time, and they've put together courses that give you the steps to do it so that you can be a part of that with your team. The muster. There's just a few tickets left for Muster 023 in Orlando, Florida. So I think the last I heard is like less than a dozen. So they're like coming up on the last little bit. So make sure that you go, if that's something you want to be part of, go to echelonfront.com, look at the events, or shoot an email to info@echelonfront.com if you want JP, Leif, Jocko, or one of the people from the ELT to come and maybe to give you some coaching to talk about how your company can get involved in an FTX, like what JP is doing right now down in Houston, or if you just need some personal coaching to get you on the path and back in the game. JP and I are also a part of a ministry called Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu. We do regular seminars throughout the year where we have somebody who's a high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner come in and give instruction, and then couple it with a speaker. We just had Carlos Henrique, who's the UFC BJJ lightweight champ, and then Tadashi, who's a multiple Grammy award-winning artist. He was on the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast this week, so make sure you go check that out. Support us, what we're doing over there at Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu _USA. If you need skincare products, if you need some beef tallow to keep yourself looking beautiful all the time, even if your Navy SEAL boyfriend is just going to come home and dump you for all the hard work that you put into it, go to littlecattle.co, where you can get all of that stuff, as well as after sun care and anti-itch cream. If you need apparel printed, JP and Josh do a stellar job at On the Path Printing. You can check them out at On the Path on Instagram. For all your apparel printing needs. If you need your company logo, you want to start your own brand, they're the folks to check out and get it done over there. And speaking of, if maybe you're kind of making that transition, you're like, you know what, I want to go from that 5X shirt down to a 3X, go check out our friends over at First in Nutrition. Go to firstinnutrition.com/JPpod. Jonathan and Ann, who are in the game with all the Echelon Front stuff with Extreme Ownership, they're going to hook you up with 4 free weeks of nutrition coaching to get you on the path. And even if you don't go recommend, like I would highly recommend going past the 4 free weeks. But if all you do is hang out there for that free stuff, you're going to be able to have information that you'll be able to apply to keep you healthy and on the path for the rest of your life. And one of the things I can recommend to you is the Jocko Fuel products, because they're the best, the cleanest energy that's out there. So go to jockofuel.com. You can check out all the stuff that they've got online. And if you use code JPPOD20, it'll save you 20%. And then finally, now that Pete and Amanda have tentatively committed to making that 5X shirt, I'm going to tentatively commit them to that if anybody who's heard it.
There is no tentative commitments anywhere.
Go check out originusa.com. They have brought manufacturing back to the United States. They've, people were up in arms about, what are you going to do with all these tariffs? Just buy from Origin. You don't have to worry about it. It's coming from the East Coast. Buy from an American-made brand, and you know what? There's no tariffs on it. They don't charge you tariffs on USPS. So there you go. Thanks to Pete and Amanda for everything that you guys have done to bring manufacturing back to America and to support our vets and Gold Star families. JP, you got any final thoughts to close us out?
Yeah. One, thank you obviously for your friendship, and what we get to do together on this podcast. And I want to thank all of the veterans that we've had on this podcast. We've had some pretty incredible humans, and all the veterans had incredible stories and backgrounds, and just, it's like cool when like you really think about those things. And, there's actually some guys of stories that were shared on our podcast that people have heard through the podcast that didn't realize the magnitude of what those men had gone through. And there are some people working behind the scenes to get those guys the proper awards and recognition that they should have had, which it's pretty amazing, man.
Yeah.
If you really think about that, man. Just the two of us doing this little podcast, and that the possible impact that it could have in a positive manner for those men that are absolute heroes of mine. After I heard those stories from a guy who I look up to, who I respect, who I love, and is one of my best friends as well. And just to see that, man, it's incredible. And so to all of our guests that were veterans, thank you. To all the other guests, thank you. To all of our listeners that are veterans, thank you. I love you guys. I appreciate your service, your sacrifice, everything that you did for this great nation, and also to the allied nations that we work alongside and we fight alongside. Thank you to all those service members that listen. I'm super thankful for like what they're also doing. And man, if you didn't serve and you have the regret, find a way to serve other people. Whether you serve veterans, or you serve first responders, or serve people that are a little less fortunate than you, because a simple thing could mean the world to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to talk about it, but I shared something with you, Isaac and Kramer, earlier, and it was really cool to see what God was able to do, just because something was put on my heart, and I was like, all right, and because of my guys helping me facilitate that, and it couldn't have found two better humans, man. As I'm sure you realize when you read that, it was just like, it was crazy, man. Like, it could not have been two better humans for that to have happened. And, we can always serve other people. It's a choice. So be intentional with finding ways to serve people, to love on them, to give them a little bit of empathy, a little bit of grace, a lot of forgiveness. And at the end of the day, just do the right things for the right reasons. And I hope this episode has been a reminder to go out there to do the work that's needed, to put in the effort, to build your legacy, and to never settle. This has been the JP Dinnell podcast. episode 112.